Space had a sound, or at least, it did to Admiral Cale Vero. It was not a real sound, not one that vibrated air or could be heard by mortal ears. It was the hum of distance, the breath of ancient void, the whisper of a place so far from the galactic core that even the stars seemed reluctant to burn here. Cale stood on the command deck of the Vrulon Ascendant, hands clasped behind his back, his obsidian-scale armor reflecting the faint glow of the bridge displays. Around him, his officers worked in tense silence, their bioluminescent eyes flicking from console to console. For 3 long cycles, Cale had chased rumors to this forgotten corner of the galaxy, rumors of them. The species whose name had once turned council halls to silence. The species whose wars had blackened half a dozen star clusters. The species whose eradication had been the most celebrated victory of the Dominion's 1,000-year history. Humans. Cale's jaws clicked softly. If the whispers were true, if even a single human enclave had survived the purge, then the galaxy was not as safe as the council believed. "Admiral," said first speaker Tara, her voice a low hiss as she approached. She was lean and sharp-featured, her carapace glinting a muted bronze. "Long-range probes have returned. We have located a planet matching the energy profile we've been tracing." Cale's eyes narrowed. "Show me." The main viewport dimmed, replaced by the sweep of a holographic projection. There, suspended in the void, hung a planet that seemed impossibly serene. Blue oceans curled around green continents. Wisps of white cloud painted swirls across its face. It looked unguarded, unclaimed. But Cale had seen too much war to trust appearances. Magnify. The view dove closer, past the glinting rings of orbital debris, past the faint glow of a half-dead station, until cities appeared like tiny jewels on the surface. They were not sprawling Dominion hive cities but scattered settlements, laid out in strangely uneven grids, as though they had grown naturally rather than been planned. "Primitive," Tara said, tilting her head. "Is this truly what we've been searching for?" Cale's mandibles flexed, a gesture halfway between thought and unease. "No," he said slowly. "Not primitive. Forgotten." He turned to his officers. "Bring us into orbit. Prepare a diplomatic envoy. I want confirmation, and I want survivors brought aboard for questioning. If this is what I think it is, the Dominion must know before anyone else." Down below, on the planet's dusty equatorial plane, Sarah Whitfield was crouched on the roof of her cabin, adjusting a solar panel that had been acting up for 3 days. "Jack," she called over her shoulder. "Hand me the driver." Her 9-year-old son darted out from the porch, a gangly silhouette against the orange dusk sky. "Got it," he shouted, holding up the tool like a trophy. Sarah grinned despite herself, took it, and turned back to the stubborn panel. The life of a frontier colonist was hard, harsh winds, unpredictable power grids, long months between supply ships, but she wouldn't trade it for the overcrowded megacities of the Terran Republic core worlds. She was tightening the last bolt when the sky changed. It started as a low vibration in the air, like distant thunder. The wind stilled. Birds scattered from the tree line, shrieking. Then came the light. A spear of brilliant white split the clouds, too straight, too clean to be natural. Sarah froze, squinting against the sudden glare. The panel reflected the light like a signal flare. "Mom?" Jack's voice was small, frightened. Sarah scrambled down from the roof just as the sky tore. A ripple spread outward from the point of light, bending clouds and atmosphere as though someone had punched a hole through reality itself. And through that hole descended a ship, massive, angular, gleaming like polished obsidian. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. It was unlike any Terran design she knew, too sleek, too alien. "Inside," she said, voice sharp. "But inside, now." She grabbed Jack's arm and sprinted for the cabin. Behind them, other colonists were spilling into the square, pointing, shouting. The ship hung over the settlement like a black blade. A voice rolled across the sky, amplified by some invisible system. "Humans of this world, identify yourselves. You are summoned." Sarah slammed the door, heart hammering. She didn't know who or what was out there, but she knew one thing: they hadn't come for trade. Hours later, Sarah found herself aboard the alien ship, flanked by 2 guards whose very presence made her skin crawl. The chamber they had brought her to was impossibly tall, cathedral-like, its walls alive with shifting glyphs of gold and violet. And at the far end stood him. Admiral Cale Vuro. He was taller than she expected, easily 8 feet, his armor etched with symbols that seemed to catch the light and hold it. His eyes, 4 of them, glimmering amber, regarded her with a cold, assessing focus. "You are human," he said, voice deep and resonant. "You are not supposed to be here." Sarah's pulse thundered in her ears. "This colony was established 32 years ago," she said carefully, trying to keep her voice steady. "Under the Terran Expansion Act, we have full settlement rights." Cale raised a clawed hand, silencing her. "Your kind was thought extinct." The words hit like a physical blow. "Extinct," she whispered. Cale began to circle her, each step measured, predatory. "During the old wars, your fleets burned entire sectors. Your weapons unmade worlds. The galaxy united to end you." His gaze flicked over her, unreadable. "And yet, here you stand." Sarah swallowed hard, forcing herself not to back away. "If you thought we were gone, why now? Why come here?" Cale stopped. For the first time, something flickered in his expression, not anger, not arrogance, but something Sarah hadn't expected. Fear. "Because," he said quietly, "if humanity survived, then the war we buried may not be finished." The Vrulon ascendant hung in perfect silence over the blue-green world, its shadow stretching like a scar across the sky. Inside, Sarah Whitfield sat on the smooth, cold floor of what the aliens called a holding chamber. It wasn't a prison cell in the way she understood it, there were no bars, no visible doors, but she had the distinct impression that leaving without permission wasn't an option. The room was unervingly clean. The walls glowed with a soft white light, as if the ship itself was alive. Somewhere in the distance, Sarah could feel a deep, steady thrum, the alien vessel's heart, keeping time with her rising anxiety. Jack sat cross-legged beside her, his eyes wide, clutching the stuffed toy he'd brought from home. He hadn't said much since the abduction. He was old enough to know fear, but too young to understand what was happening. Sarah tried to keep her voice calm. "It's all right, honey. We're going to be fine." "Are they bad guys?" Jack asked softly. Sarah hesitated. She thought of the towering figure of Admiral Cale Vuro, the way he'd looked at her as though she were both a threat and an artifact. "I don't know," she said finally. "But we're going to stay calm. That's the first step." Deep within the flagship, Cale Vuro convened his senior officers in the war hall, a chamber lined with holographic records of past campaigns. He stood at the head of the obsidian table, claws pressed flat against its surface. "You all heard what I heard," Cale said, his voice cutting through the low murmur. "Humanity is not extinct. The purge failed." The words fell like a weight on the room. Strategist Iran leaned forward, his spined crest bristling. "Then we must finish what was started. A single strike, a cleansing fire, and this colony becomes nothing but ash." "Too easy," said Tara, standing to Cale's left. "Destroying them before we know the full extent of their survival risks disaster. What if this colony is not alone?" The table's surface shifted, projecting the star map Cale had been studying for days. Red Dominion territories pulsed across the center of the galaxy, but at the edge, at the very rim, there was a yawning black void. "This is where they came from," Cale said, pointing with a claw. "Our scouts traced old subspace corridors leading back toward the Sol system." The officers murmured uneasily. The very name carried weight, the site of humanity's last stand. "Sol was burned," Uren said. "Nothing lives there." Cale's amber eyes hardened. "So we believed. But if this world exists, then perhaps others do too. Perhaps humanity rebuilt slowly, quietly, waiting for the day they would strike back." Later, Sarah was escorted, though it felt more like herded, into a private chamber. The guards stood like statues as the walls shifted and reshaped into a new configuration. Cale was waiting for her. The room was dimmer than before, lit by the soft glow of a massive holographic star map that stretched from floor to ceiling. Thousands of stars glittered in perfect three-dimensional clarity, each one tagged with alien glyphs. Kale gestured to the display. Do you know what this is? Sarah swallowed. A map. Kale's mandibles clicked softly. This is the galaxy as the Dominion knows it. And this, he extended a claw toward a dark patch at the rim of the spiral arm, is where you come from. The projection shifted, diving inward until a yellow star appeared, surrounded by faint outlines of planets. Sarah felt her throat tighten. That's Sol. Kale glanced at her, surprised she recognized it. Yes. Your homeworld system. Or what remains of it. The planets were tagged with Dominion sigils. Earth was marked with a black emblem, a symbol that radiated finality. Sarah stepped closer. What does that mean? It means, Kale said slowly, that your world was purged. Its surface scorched, its population annihilated. Humanity was declared an existential threat, a contagion that had to be removed before it spread any further. Sarah turned to face him, fury rising like fire in her chest. You're saying you murdered an entire species? Kale's gaze did not waver. We did what was necessary. Your kind's wars shattered empires. Your weapons unmade planets. Had we not acted, the galaxy would have burned. Sarah's fists clenched. Maybe it deserved to burn if you thought genocide was the answer. Kale's mandibles flexed in irritation, but there was something else there, something she hadn't expected. Regret. Before either could speak again, the ship's lighting shifted from a calm white to an urgent, pulsing red. A klaxon blared through the chamber, a sound that transcended species, battle stations. Kale snapped his head toward the ceiling. Report. A voice came through the calm unidentified fleet emerging from slipspace at system edge. Configuration unknown. Numbers, significant. Kale's eyes widened. Show me. The wall dissolved into a live feed of the system's outer orbit. Ships. Dozens of them. Sleek, angular, bristling with weapons, and moving with frightening precision. Sarah's heart leapt into her throat. She knew those hull shapes. She'd seen them on recruitment posters and old broadcasts from the core worlds. Oh my God, she breathed. Those are Terran warships. Kale turned on her, eyes blazing. You called them here? Sarah shook her head frantically. No, we didn't even know they still existed. Kale's claws clicked against the floor as he strode toward the projection. It does not matter. They are here. And they came armed for war. On the Ascendance Bridge, chaos reigned, but disciplined chaos, the kind Kale demanded from his crew. Officers barked orders, shields flared to life, weapons charged with a rising hum. Kale took his place at the command dais. Bring the fleet to readiness. Defensive formation, do not fire unless fired upon. The view zoomed closer. The Terran ships were spreading into a combat wedge, a predator's formation. Admiral, Terra said quietly, if they attack, our orbit will become a trap. We will be forced to fight or withdraw. Kale's claws flexed. Then we will find out whether the galaxy truly succeeded in destroying humanity, or only made them more dangerous. In the holding chamber, Sarah pressed a hand against the glowing wall, staring at the projection of the fleet as it drew closer. They were here. Humanity was here. And whatever happened next, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The Terran fleet appeared like ghosts from the dark, one after another, warships tearing through slipspace with flashes of blue fire. Admiral Kale Vuro stood motionless at the center of the Vrulon Ascendance Bridge, his four amber eyes locked on the growing swarm of contacts on the holodisplay. 30, 40, 50 human vessels, all taking up positions with chilling precision. They didn't look like the desperate fleets he remembered from the archives of the old wars. These ships were clean-lined, angular, radiating confidence. This was not a species on the edge of extinction. This was a species that had been preparing. Admiral, Terra hissed, their lead ship is locking targeting solutions. They mean to strike. Kale's mandibles clicked. Raise shields. Ready weapons. But do not fire first. On the other side of the void, aboard the TRS Dauntless, Admiral Jonathan Reeves stood on his bridge, hands clasped behind his back. His uniform was immaculate, his gray hair cropped close. The lines on his face were the kind carved by war, not age. "Enemy flagship in orbit," reported his tactical officer. "Configuration matches Dominion Dreadnought class, but readings are unusual. Energy output is higher than projected." Reeves nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the tactical map. He'd studied Dominion warships his entire career. The sight of one this close, in human space, set every instinct he had on edge. "Open channel," Reeves said. A moment later, the alien's image appeared tall, armored, radiating quiet authority. "This is Admiral Cale Vero of the Elith Dominion," the alien said, his voice a low, resonant growl. "We are not here to wage war." Reeves's jaw tightened. "Then you chose the wrong place to loiter, Admiral. You are trespassing in sovereign Terran space. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately." Cale's expression didn't change. "We believed your kind extinct." That belief was mistaken. Reeves stepped closer to the holoprojector. "Then allow me to correct your mistake. If you threaten human lives again, you won't have a fleet left to retreat with." And the channel cut. "Contact!" Terra shouted. "They're firing." The first volley of Terran plasma torpedoes slammed into the Ascendant's shields, flaring them white-hot. The bridge rocked violently, throwing lesser officers to the floor. Shields at 60%, barked an ensign. Cale's claws dug into the dais. "Return fire. Keep them at distance, they want us dead, let them pay for every meter." The Ascendant's main batteries roared to life, hurling lances of particle energy across the void. Explosions blossomed in the black as two Terran frigates were vaporized, but the fleet barely slowed. Sarah Whitfield gripped the edge of a console in the observation gallery, heart hammering as the ship shuddered under incoming fire. Jack clung to her side, terrified. "You have to stop this," she shouted toward Cale, though she knew he couldn't hear her from the bridge. "You're going to kill each other." The battle became a deadly dance. The Terran fleet pressed in with surgical precision, splitting into three prongs, forcing Cale's forces to divide their fire. The Ascendant's escorts fought bravely, but one by one they began to falter. On the bridge, Cale barked orders with mechanical precision. "Reposition dreadnoughts Gamma and Zur to cover the flank. Focus fire on their lead cruiser." "Admiral," Terra said urgently, "if we keep trading fire, we will lose orbit. Our only escape vector will be compromised." Cale's mandibles tightened. She was right, this wasn't a battle he could win without committing to full escalation, and full escalation would mean war. He glanced at the display again. The Terrans weren't here to wipe them out, not entirely, they were here to send a message. In the holding chamber, Sarah made a decision. She turned to the guard stationed at the door. "Take me to Cale," she demanded. The guard hissed something in its language but didn't move. Sarah stepped forward, her voice sharp. "If this ship dies, your admiral dies. And you die. Take me to him, now." The guard hesitated, then activated its calm moments later. Sarah was being escorted through the corridor toward the bridge. When the doors parted, she stepped into a maelstrom, smoke, flashing alarms, officers shouting coordinates. And at the center, Cale, radiating barely contained fury. "Admiral," she shouted over the noise. "This has to stop." Cale turned to her, incredulous. "You brought this fleet here, you started this war." "No," Sarah said, planting her feet. "This isn't war. This is fear. And if you don't stop, if you don't talk to them, you'll light the match that burns this whole galaxy again." Cale stared at her for a long moment. Around them, the battle raged. Another impact rocked the bridge, sparks raining from a damaged console. Slowly, Cale reached toward the calm interface. "Signal ceasefire," he growled. "Admiral?" Terra's voice was sharp with disbelief. "Do it," Cale said, his tone brooking no argument. A moment later, the Dominion guns fell silent. Across the void, the Terran fleet held fire, suspicious but waiting. Cale opened a channel. "Admiral Reeves." The Dominion acknowledges humanity's return. We will withdraw. This system is yours. On the Dauntless, Reeves regarded the alien's image for a long, tense moment. Then he gave a single, curt nod. See that you do. Minutes later, the Ascendant broke orbit, its escorts limping after it, leaving the Terran fleet hanging like sentinels over Kestrel. Sarah stood at the viewport, Jack beside her, watching as the alien fleet vanished into hyperspace. Cale stood near the exit, his silhouette framed by the dying glow of the battle displays. You've changed everything, he said quietly. Sarah didn't look at him. Her eyes were still fixed on the Terran fleet, shining like a constellation of cold stars. No, she said softly. Humanity has. And the galaxy is about to learn what that means. Cale inclined his head once, not as a superior to an inferior, but as one warrior acknowledging another, and turned away. As the human fleet moved to secure orbit, Sarah felt something stir deep inside her. Pride. Fear. Determination. For centuries, humanity had been a ghost story told around alien council fires. Now, they were flesh and blood again, and stronger than before. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was already preparing. Somewhere, other empires would be taking notice. And somewhere deep inside Sarah Whitfield, a quiet certainty grew. The heavens themselves would soon burn, not because humanity had returned, but because humanity was done hiding.